classic returning legendaries like Ho-Oh and Lugia will finally be available to use in Gen 9 with the upcoming release of the Indigo Disc DLC. Gen 9 Ubers is about to look completely different with all of these incredible new options to choose from. But which returning legendaries are going to be the best in competitive singles? Let's take a look, folks. Let's talk about Kyurem first, folks. Despite the fact that in Gen 8 this Pokemon was ranked in Ubers, I'm pretty sure they're going to test this in OU first. It doesn't quite have the historical precedent of being broken in every game or anything. Gen 8 is the only gen where this was ever Ubers, and that's largely because of Freeze Dry, which allowed it to be a extremely potent breaker that very little could actually switch in against. I'm kind of 50-50 on whether or not this will end up in Ubers again. I think there's a good chance. There are definitely a lot of strong breakers like this that very little can come in against, but just the fact that you can revenge KO them prevents them from being too insane, plus it's rock weak. It can now terrestrialize to improve its breaking power on either dragon or ice moves, which sounds really powerful. I think this set will be a lot better, the Substitute Roost Pressure Stall set, because you can now defensively terrestrialize. This sounds really annoying, to be honest. This set will be both offensively and defensively really difficult to deal with. I mean, Ice Ground is perfect coverage, especially if you're choosing to use Freeze Dry over Ice Beam. This definitely sounds really powerful, but I've been surprised before in Gen 9. I mean, I didn't expect Zamazenta Body Press to be a balanced presence in the format that isn't actually that overwhelming, so we'll have to just see it in action. That's really the only way we're going to know. It's hard to predict things like this, but if this does end up getting banned to Ubers, I don't think it will be very good in Ubers. So this is maybe another Ubers UU Pokemon. The legendary dogs from Gen 2 are returning, folks, and I think there's a pretty low chance these will be OU viable. They are quite enhanced by Terra for sure, but they haven't been OU power level for many generations now. In Gen 8 they were RU and NUBL. Entei has never been great, honestly. It's always been the worst of the trio. In Gen 9 especially, it's just a little bit too weak to keep up with these stats. Suicune probably has the most potential out of the three. It's always been the best of the three. And in Gen 9, maybe the fact that it has Pressure Stall and has a lot more longevity than other defensive Pokemon could be a serious asset. Access to Scald helps. The newfound ability to terrestrialize. Imagine a Fairy or Steel type Suicune, that sounds pretty good. Could be something. I think this is still going to probably be outclassed by Manaphy or Dondozo in OU, but it's the one with the most potential. Could see UU for this, perhaps. Solgaleo is a legendary that unfortunately I don't think is going to be very good. I think as an offensive threat, it's too slow and outclassed massively by Zacian Crown, who has better typing, higher speed, more attack, better coverage even. I think it's just better in every way. One thing Solgaleo does have is Trick Room. Maybe this could be useful, but I think probably not. You'd rather Calyrex Ice Rider, to be honest. It has more offensive value. Psychic Steel isn't a great offensive or defensive type in Ubers, really. Psychic hits Koraidon super effectively, but at that point, why don't you just use Zacian Crown, who also hits Koraidon super effectively, and other stuff. In Gen 8, this did get Teleport, which gave it a nice role as a utility pivot kind of guy, but there's a high chance this won't even get Teleport in Gen 9. A lot of stuff lost Teleport. Most things did. Even if it did have this pivoting option, I think you would actually prefer Corviknight, who has superior utility. It is immune to ground, unlike Solgaleo. It also has access to Defog. This guy will probably end up in Ubers UU, but in that format it could actually be alright. Not only is it immune to Sticky Web because of Full Metal Body, which is really nice, it's also not bad into Magearna. It resists Fairy, and Magearna can't really hit this. It doesn't have fire coverage. It has Focus Blast, but you're neutral to fighting, and you can hit it pretty hard with Sunsteel Strike. This could also be a nice check to Zacian Hero. You resist Fairy and threaten them with super effective Stab. Sounds pretty good to me, honestly. Lunala, on the other hand, I think actually sounds very good. This Pokemon's ability works exactly the same as Multiscale, halving damage taken from attacks when you're at full HP. An amazing defensive ability. And now that this can terrestrialize, this could be one of the most powerful new bulky sweepers in Ubers. It can Carmine up, Roost up, even Substitute, and Moongeist Beam is an amazing move. It ignores enemy abilities and also just has a massive base power for a ghost type attack. Really incredible move. It even has Focus Blast as coverage to hit Arceus, the most prominent normal type. If you need even further insurance against Blissey or maybe something like Clodsire, you have Psyshock as well. This sounds extremely powerful to me. The Gen 5 dragons are returning as well, Reshiram and Zekrom. Reshiram is one of those Pokemon that always looks really good, but in practice has never been fantastic. It's held back a bit by the fire typing, which provides an unfortunate rock weakness and always just struggles to fit a little bit. But this special attack and these amazing high power stab moves, really good coverage. It just looks so good. I do wonder, will this finally be a generation where Reshiram can function well? I think a good frame of reference is probably Chi-Yu. Even though Chi-Yu is not as good defensively as Reshiram, Reshiram has way better defensive stats. Chi-Yu is a similar fire type wall breaker, and you never really see it in Gen 9 Ubers, in the current metagame anyway. The meta just doesn't really want something like this. It's kind of a detriment to teams, doesn't provide much defensively, and although it has high breaking power, it can very easily be outpaced. You might get one kill, but then you allow something in that's really strong, like Koraidon or something, and then they start recovering momentum and it's all over. For that reason, I think Reshiram probably will struggle in Gen 9 Ubers. Doesn't really fit with the pace. That being said, I think in Ubers UU it'll be really good. I think Zekrom will also struggle because it is largely outclassed by Miraidon, a way better, faster, and easier to fit on teams Dragon Electric type. And I know that Zekrom has better physical attack. It's got 150 physical attack, which is really amazing, but I just think it's too slow, and it has the exact same defensive type profile as Miraidon, which makes it a bit difficult to justify like stacking them, or why wouldn't you just use Miraidon? Even though Miraidon is a special attacker, it's pretty effective against like Blissey, and Specs Draco Meteor can nuke through Clodside. I don't think that being a better physical attacker and being an effective breaker is enough to justify using this over the way better Pokemon with exactly the same typing. This will be really good in Ubers UU though. There aren't many of these staple ground types that you see in other generations because a lot of them are used in Ubers, meaning they're banned in Ubers UU, so spamming Bolt Strike sounds really powerful. The Lati twins are coming back, folks, and I think this time around they might actually be really good as Calm Mind stored power sweepers. Cresselia is a good frame of reference here, who became way better in Gen 9 with the new ability to Terrastalize. Terra Poison with Levitate is an amazing combination, granting you a poison immunity, and Levitate allowing you to bypass the ground weakness. With not many psychic types to really punish you, this can snowball out of control quickly and steal games away. Latios and Latias are both faster and more immediately threatening, and even have Dragon Stab, which is really nice. So I think that these sound really good as Terra Poison potentially. Stored power sweepers in the same vein as Cresselia. I think they might in fact just be basically the exact same idea but better. Latias if you need something with more bulk, Latios if you want more immediate pressure. In terms of like old Latios sets you used to see like Choice Specs, Choice Scarp, I think that Dragapult will largely outclass that since it's faster, has better move pool, better typing, but this kind of Calm Mind sweeper set sounds really good to me. And finally we have the Gen 2 cover legendaries, Lugia and Ho-Oh, who might be some of the most noteworthy additions. I think that Lugia's viability is going to hinge on its move pool, because a lot of stuff has lost Toxic in Gen 9. If Lugia loses Toxic, I think it'll lose its most important progress making tool. If it does have this, I think it will be excellent as a defensive wall. Multi-scale is an amazing ability, Heavy Duty Boots makes it even better. If this keeps defog, that'll also be really significant because it's so good defensively, and Gen 9 is really lacking in hazard removers. I think there's a pretty low chance of this. So many Pokemon have lost defog in Gen 9, even if it seems logical for them to have it, like Zapdos, for example, lost it. It's really hard to say whether it will or not, because Corviknight kept it, that makes sense, Mandibuzz kept it, Giratina Origin still has it, which makes less sense than Zapdos losing it. I don't know, it's a bit random. If this has defog and Toxic, I think it'll be great. And finally we have Ho-Oh, who I think will actually be the strongest of all of the returning legendaries. This is the most significant one. Even if Ho-Oh loses defog and Toxic, this will still be amazing. This is actually one of the most consistent legendaries of all time. Ever since Gen 2, it's been a relevant presence in literally every Ubers format, I think. Even before the addition of Heavy Duty Boots, which obviously is a huge buff for Ho-Oh, this thing could get by despite its rock weakness, which is really hard to do, purely because of Regenerator. Regenerator is one of the best abilities in the entire game. This allows you to heal 1/3 of your maximum health every time you switch out, which is probably the safest way to heal in all of Pokemon. You can heal without even putting yourself at risk at all. And usually Pokemon with Regenerator have weaknesses to balance things out. Like in the past, this was Times4 Rock Weak, but now, no it isn't. It has Heavy Duty Boots. Usually, sometimes Regenerator Pokemon have lower stats than average. Not Ho-Oh, it has the greatest stats of all time. Sometimes they have limited move pools. Not Ho-Oh, it has Sacred Fire, which is an amazing 100 power fire type attack with 50% burn chance. It has, you know, Will-O-Wisp Will-O-Wisp, which can directly burn things and has more PP than Sacred Fire. It has Brave Bird for stab and regen, helps you overcome the recoil damage too. Thunder Wave is amazing utility. And now this guy can even overcome its type weaknesses by terastallizing, and this is going to be one of the highest value Pokemon to terastallize on. Becoming water or fairy type on this will turn it into an indestructible monster. Because of Regenerator, you don't really care about getting toxic because you can just heal so much that it's never going to put you at risk of death unless you're the last Pokemon. And all of those advantages are just inherently good, not even considering the metagame that this fits into, but also, Ho-Oh happens to be a great check to Zacian Crowned, one of the most common Ubers Pokemon right now. Ho-Oh resists pretty much everything Zacian Crown can do. It resists Fairy, Steel moves, close combat. The best option Zacian Crown has is Wild Charge, which is not a great option because of the recoil. Even that, you can probably stomach it. And Terra Blast, maybe? Sometimes they've done this to hit Skeledirge, like Terra Blast Ground, but that's a significant commitment just to hit Ho-Oh. And it would have to be an awkward type like Rock or Electric or something. Sacred Fire is going to be so great against Arceus sweeper sets because they can't taunt you to stop you from burning them. You can just burn them with an attack. Thunder Wave is really high value against stuff like Koraidon. You resist fighting, you come in and Thunder Wave them. Brave Bird can even just one-hit KO them, but Thunder Wave covers if they Terra. This is just going to have the natural bulk to stomach hits from most miscellaneous fast threats and just cripple them with Thunder Wave or Will-O-Wisp or Sacred Fire. Regen all that health back really reliably, not even worried about Stealth Rock anymore. I think it's a no-brainer that Ho-Oh is going to be amazing. But what do you think, folks? Am I overrating Ho-Oh or anyone else here? Are there any returning legendaries that you think I've underrated? Who are you looking forward to the most? And what would you like me to talk about next? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you very much for watching.
KO'd by one hit! It's scattered spike!
The money got different, cause of what I'm spending.